story needs to be retold. Listen carefully to see if you can catch the thread of its sacred numerals, archetypes. Its sacred symbols. In a time long ago, in the land of the rising sun, there was a young and virile samurai lord by the name of Tomodato. Tomodato was not only a master of the sword and other forms of martial arts, but he was an accomplished musician. He could sing and dance. He wrote poetry. Tomodato was in the employ of the shogun of the day, called Edo. And one day, the shogun, Edo, needed someone to undertake a special mission. So he called on Tomodato, and he said, "Are you loyal?" And Tomodato said, "You know that I would die for you." "Do you love me?" said Edo. Tomodato fell down on his knees with tears rolling down his face. And so Edo instructed Tomodato on the mission that he was to undertake. And he said to Tomodato, "Go fearlessly on your fastest horse. Do not be deterred by enemies, storms and tempests, demons, and above all, do not look in between the eyes of any maiden." So Tomodato got on to his swiftest horse and set out on his mission. He rode like the wind, and as he passed through enemy territory, he was fearless, brave. He came to a great storm. The winds blew his cloak, and he drove his horse against the winds that whipped and tried to take his garments from him. But he wrapped them close around him, urged his horse on, and rode through the storms. But then Tomodato found himself in a wilderness. He could not tell the difference between day and night. The clouds were so thick and dark. His horse was exhausted, and he had to alight and lead it. But he cried out, "Am I to die in this wilderness without completing my mission?" And just at that moment, the clouds cleared, and in the bright moonlight that appeared, Tomodato saw smoke coming out of a chimney from a small hill in the distance. So leading his horse towards the smoke, he came upon a thatched cottage, and standing outside that cottage were 3 willow trees, their branches blowing in the wind, their tendrils flowing. Tomodato was exhausted and knocking on the door of the hut, when the door was opened by an old woman, poor and simply clad. He leaned against the door jamb in exhaustion and said, "Please, please, can you give me hospitality? I am exhausted, tired, and hungry." The old woman took his hand and was about to lead him into the house when she said, "My daughter is taking care of your horse." And when Tomodato turned around, he saw a maiden, her long hair flowing loose, her garments being blown like the branches of the willow tree, and she had the rein of Tomodato's horse over her arm. The old woman pulled Tomodato into the house. There was the man of the house sitting in a rocking chair by the fire, and they quickly began to serve him a bowl of soup, some hot rice wine, drying him, giving him fresh clothing. After some while, the daughter of the house came in and went behind a screen where she changed her clothing and combed her long hair. When she came out, she knelt down before Tomodato with a warm bowl of rice wine, and their eyes met. Tomodato forgot what Edo had said, and his eyes fixed on the place between her eyes, and he asked, "What is your name?" And she whispered, "My name is Green Willow." Tomodato was struck. He had never seen such a beautiful maiden. They retired for the night, leaving Tomodato in front of the fire. But despite his exhaustion, he could not sleep. Green willow, green willow, green willow was on his lips all throughout the night. But he woke early in the morning, remembering his mission, remembering his task. And while the household was asleep, leaving a bag of gold in gratefulness, Tomodato saddled his horse and rode off to resume his quest. The day passed, and Tomodato found a place at an abandoned shrine. That place was so holy, he was able to lay down and sleep peacefully the whole night. He woke the next morning with the intention to go down to the river to bathe and refresh himself. But as he stepped across the threshold, there lay Green Willow, her long hair flowing down beside her cheeks. She looked up at Tomodato, weeping. Tomodato said, "Green Willow, Green Willow," and he lifted her up in his arms and placed her on his horse, and they rode off. But Tomodato and Green Willow did not feel the wind in their hair. They did not see the trees they passed by. They were so totally and completely absorbed in each the other. They came to a city, and because of the belt that contained gold, Tomodato was able to buy them a house, and for 3 years they remained in blissful absorption with each other. One evening, when they were moving out into their garden to see the rising moon, Green Willow clutched her chest and said to Tomodato, "Take me, hold me, I'm dying." "Oh no," said Tomodato, "you're just weary." But then, as he held her in his arms, she whispered, "Someone has cut down the green willow tree." And in that instant, Tomodato found that what he was holding in his arms was merely the silken garments that Green Willow had worn. Many years later, when Tomodato had become a well-known, wandering, holy man, he found himself near the hill, and as he walked and approached, he saw the remains of the thatched hut, the door hanging from its hinges, the windows broken, and the stumps of 3 willow trees at its doorway. What does Green Willow represent for us in this story? What's the deep meaning of this story for us? What is this illusion? The greatest illusion of all that this story illuminates for us. What does green willow represent for you? Okay. And what's the greatest desire of all? It's epitomized by green willow. It's epitomized by green willow. Our need